You say in the United States people don't like to acknowledge the fact of death. Is this true in the patient also who is about to die? Does he refuse to acknowledge this?
Oh, this is true for every human being, but I think at this time and in this country, in this society, it is even more true. America is a very death-denying society. You have drive-in funeral homes where you can drive up and sign a guest book and drive off. Your dead people are embalmed and they get makeup and they are in slumber rooms and they don't even look dead. And I think one of the more pathological signs of the death-denying society are the deep-freeze societies where you deep-freeze people and promise the family at high cost to defrost them in 50 or 100 years from now when science and technology has advanced enough. To me, these are all morbid results of death-denying society. And this naturally affects the patients too. For the patient, they have a much bigger fear of death, especially if instead of allowing them to die at home in a familiar environment, they are sent to an emergency room where they are faced with interns and externs and x-ray technicians and lab technicians, and everybody is busy and preoccupied with prolonging their life, and then they get to an intensive treatment unit which can be very depersonalized and mechanized, and that makes dying much more frightening.
Roland, the course at Colonial is always in great shape, but how about for this tournament coming up? How does it look?
I think it's as good a shape as we've had it.
The moisture content just about like you'd like to see it?
Yes, sir. Our greens are in good shape, and our fairways have been a little hard this week, but we've had about 1,200 rounds of golf from our own members and their guests, and they kept it that way intentionally so they wouldn't get chewed up with the scooters and the walkers.
There are those who consider this course at Colonial to be pretty tough. With the greens protected like they are, the massive sand traps, how are they going to play this course?
Well, the winning score has been about even par, 1 or 2 under, somewhere along in there, and I suspect the score will be about the same again this year. The players, the caliber's about the same. They're all champions, and I predict a score of about 2 to 5 under, somewhere along there.
As we get down toward the starting time now, who's missing from the lineup? Who won't be here?
Arnold Palmer definitely will not be here. Billy Casper will not be here. And Mike Hill sent his regrets. His wife is pretty ill. He decided not to come. And that's about it.
Without putting you on the line, who do you foresee as possible winner?
Well, I got some favorites. I don't know who's going to be the winner or not. I'd like to see Gary Player win. He's a great champion all over the world, and he's never won our tournament. And Gene Littler, of course, he's always been a sentimental favorite with me.
I've watched on television lots of programs that have dealt with young people who've been involved with drugs, and they all end up saying one particular thing. When they're trying to get off of drugs, they have to find other interests. They're building things, or working with clay, or sewing, or involved in writing something. And this seems to be, in fact, I heard a couple of girls last week on television saying that the reason they got hung up on drugs is because they had nothing to do and no one to talk to and no one to relate to. And I've been involved in a couple of workshops trying to help young people find themselves and find something that they'd like to do. And I think when you're really involved and you spend most of your time doing what makes you happy, you really don't have a whole lot of time to look for things like that.
Placed our policing efforts here at the wrong spot. We've put all our efforts at the local level of getting the pushers and the ones who are selling, and I'm all for that. If the law says you shouldn't sell and people sell, they're breaking the law. But I'm told, and I've looked into it a bit, that we've invested very, very little at keeping the drugs out of the country. The people in the Customs Service, the Immigration Service, and the FBI, the Secret Service, who should be blocking the drugs coming in from France and Turkey and Mexico and Canada, are very small in numbers. And so the society, in effect, has brought the problem to the wrong spot and really hasn't controlled the influx. So I'm saying two things. First, if the law says that drugs shouldn't be here, I'm in favor of keeping them out. And then I'm also in favor of decent scientific research that'll really clarify where the bad effects are, and so that we have some decent information on which to base policy. I don't feel I have enough information.
Well, the need is very clear that minority people in the United States own a small share of the total business available in the country, and it's disproportionately smaller than their population. They've not had the opportunities to enter the mainstream of the free enterprise system, and this is what the MESBIC program is all about, and why the Nixon administration has launched this program last fall on a nationwide basis.
Only 3% of the nation's small businesses is owned by minorities. The rewards the Minority Enterprise Program has on a community is immeasurable. The problem now is getting big businesses to sponsor MESBICs. For Channel 8 News, this is Jess Brown.
I think it had some real benefits for both sides. I think that we learned that there is frustration and concern among the youth, and it goes beyond the Southeast Asian situation, Cambodia, Vietnam. That's the overriding issue. But they're also concerned about the direction we are taking in solving many of our social problems. And it didn't take long for those that I talked with to put aside the foreign situation and start talking about the domestic problems that they're concerned with, such as what are we going to do about the deterioration of the urban center, the ghetto areas? What are we going to do about providing adequate health services? How are we going to solve the health manpower problem? My response to them was that we're never going to solve it as long as the universities are closed. So we better sit down and start talking to each other and figure out what our problems are and make sure that we maintain an effective and a high-quality higher education system, because you're certainly not going to train doctors as long as the doors of those institutions are closed because of frustration among the youth.
In a patient who is about to die, do you feel that it's perhaps a waste of time or unnecessarily cruel even to prolong their life, to keep treating them?
Well, it depends what you understand to keep treating them. I think many of the nurses that we interview say it's a waste of time of nursing personnel to spend so much time with dying patients. And they are very angry at those dying patients and say, I hope he doesn't die on me, and it's a waste of time, and we should spend our efforts with those who can get well. That's a reflection of their own anger and their own anxiety about dying, and each dying patient provokes these feelings in you. Another way of coping with it is not to acknowledge that somebody is dying and then to hook them on respirators and monitors and a lot of life-prolonging procedures, and that is not helpful. That gratifies our own needs and not the patient's needs. And the difficulty is, and something we don't teach enough, is when is it indicated to add life-prolonging procedures, and when would it be much better for the patient to allow him to die with peace and dignity. And that's something we have to teach.